Hi, everybody. Welcome to CSA Bangalore chapter Cyber.ai Insights and Power of Knowing Forum Knowledge Nexus Tech that moves you, ideas that scale you. And the topic of discussion today is the future of global security, unlock the power of GCC model. That's what we're going to talk about. Your go-to host podcast today on tech, cybersecurity, strategy, and growth. I am Prem Kumar AS today, and we'll explore cybersecurity on how we can look at GCC can play an important role. A special welcome to all tuned on CSA Bangalore chapter and Power of Knowing Forum collaborative podcast episode 247 live on LinkedIn. We have the honor of having Pragatish, a global security leader, a global capabilities center head, CISM, information security, cybersecurity speaker, joining us today. Let's welcome our esteemed speaker to the podcast event and dive into the topic. Hi, Pragatish. Welcome to our podcast,
Hi,
sir. How
sir.
are you? Hi.
Thanks for having me, sir. Thank you.
Welcome, Pragatish. A small intro would help our audience to know you better.
Okay. Thanks, sir. First of all, I would like to share my gratitude and thanks to this forum, CSA Bangalore chapter. I'm Pragatish. I have been in cybersecurity field for 17 years now. Have managed several GCC centers. And prior to this, I was part of Symantec Managed Security Services. Um good to be in the podcast. Thank you, sir. That's a quick intro.
Yeah, thank you for that, Pragatish. To dive into the topic, I just wanted to start with what is the blind spot that we see when talking about global cybersecurity, that too on a GCC model that can help illuminate.
So, sir, in cybersecurity, we see blind spots on a day-to-day basis, and we call blind spots as coverage and visibility gaps.
Okay.
So when we talk about visibility, the unknowns are the major factors, are the major threats for cybersecurity professionals. When it comes to visibility, we would need as much telemetry as possible,
Okay.
as much information as possible ingested to our centralized platforms, and then we need certain security controls which provides telemetry informations to the management at all point in time. So this covers the human controls, the technology controls, and the compliance and the regulatory controls. So that is one side of the coin. Then we have this is about visibility. Then we have coverage. Even though we implement preventative controls uh, or the defensive controls, sometimes there are coverage gaps based on the rules that we have configured, or based on the policies that we have implemented, or the control functionality of that particular control not working as expected. So that is where blind spot comes, or maybe an analogy that can be given in from a cybersecurity perspective. So being said that, maybe I would uh, take the recent example of geopolitical drift, right? So that is one of the major blind spot that we have, because this is not only applicable to government, but it also are applicable to all major global organization that we have in the globe. Because just because of this geopolitical drift, we have seen n number of threats, attacks posed against most of the global organizations, and also specifically targeting the government organizations. We might have seen that uh, the BSE and NSE websites got has been limited with geolocation based access. So apart from India, no one can access from the globe. So that was one restriction, to give you an example. So blind spots are always there, and then we are trying to attempt to have visibility to all the blind spots that we have in cybersecurity.
How is cybersecurity narrative evolving for the CEOs, right? Not just CISOs.
So, so the narrative is getting interesting day by day for CEOs and CISOs. So previously, cybersecurity was seen as an separate IT entity, or maybe something which is an support function. But when it comes, so this was the story dating back to 2000, the late 2000s. But
Hmm.
starting from 2010 onwards, the narrative started changing and it started evolving. The CEOs, coming from a business centric standpoint, have also understood that cybersecurity and business strategy are interlinked. And then business risk is being treated as the top risk for all the CEOs around the globe. So they are giving enough importance to CISOs and the security programs that the CISOs bring to the table. Yes, there are budget constraints, but this narrative got changed because every new CEO, or maybe the existing CEOs of the global organizations, are looking for digital transformation. So, and most of the businesses runs based on the digital platforms. So, cybersecurity being this hardcore foundation for enabling digital businesses. So, hence, CEO has understood the imperative of cybersecurity, and then the enough importance is being obtained or gained by CISOs around the globe. So that is how I see it, sir. So the narrative is improving, and it is becoming a partnership rather than responsibility of different teams and accountability.
Now, with that coming in, now how do we see GCC models becoming a global benchmark? See, now everybody has their own cybersecurity laws, data protection laws, and stuff like that, right? In can we unpack a GCC model and why it is becoming a global benchmark? Is there a pointer that you can share it with us, Pragatish?
Yeah, sure. So I've been in GCC model for almost like 10 years now, and I have seen different models, different evaluation of GCC model.
Okay.
So maybe this goes bit of a history. Maybe I will unpack the history first, then probably I will delve deep into the recent GCC models. So when we started, this event dates back to even me getting started into the industry. So I was just going through when was the very first GCC evolved in India, or when was the very first GCC set up in India.
Hmm.
So it dates back to 1985. At that time, there was no term called as GCC. It was called as an R&D center set up by Texas Instrument. So it dates back to 1985. But the the real impact, or we would have seen different form factors or shape and form of GCC, previously called as offshore centers. So there is a term called as onshore center and then an offshore in the early 2000. And then comes the SSC, shared service centers, in the late 2000 era. So wherein the global organization wanted an global talent, they want to tap on global talent. At the same time, they are conscious of cost. Um, so they were leveraging on the cost arbitrage as the main lever for delivering work from an offshore center. So previously it was called as shared service centers, and then it evolved, and then it become captive centers, and then it become in-house centers, and then in the late 20 uh, 2020s, or maybe in earlier 2015, this got evolved into GCC, Global Capability Center. But however, I think there is an important point that we need to understand. So initially, even the global organizations has set up centers or R&D centers or development centers or inno centers for only cost arbitrage and tapping the global talent. But in late 2015s, the global organization has acknowledged that there is an talent in India, and also there is innovation happening. And from India, we have talents who can streamline the process, stabilize the uh, global capabilities, GCCs, and the capabilities within the GCCs. And then they have started heavily investing into setting up new GCC. When they started investing into new GCC, they moved away from that shared service model to GCC model to tap upon the innovation economy, or maybe they want to innovate and do R&D from India. So that is where this whole GCC model got evolved. And then also most of the development centers, maybe I hope it is okay to quote certain company names. um, so there are certain GCCs which are set up for creating software development centers. So let's say for example Microsoft. There are other GCCs which does business functions from India. Even they are called as GCC. So in the whole gamut of GCC, there are several areas. So the BFSI sector has its own GCC in India. Likewise, retail sector has its own GCC. And then from an retail sector, we have GCCs in India. All these GCCs does different functions, business functions, but this GCC has become a global framework for all the global organization, because they are able to centralize all the business function from India and then govern and then strategize. And now GCC has become a strategic arm for most of the global organization around the globe. That's
I
my take
think
on GCC.
what you're saying is very. See, I'm recalling something because I worked for ODCs. So many I worked handling ODCs for many of the
Mhm.
companies. I don't want to name them. I can tell them. I've done it for oil and natural gas. I've done it for banking. I've done it for uh, even the airline industries, and there are a lot of things. Banking has been the predominant stuff because there are people who have their processing done here, and the entire operations of country is managed here in India. So those are pointers that we wanted to look at. Your point is very very valid, where people looked at for cost optimization, where we had good strength of people who are able to catch up pointers very quickly and run their operations while they were maybe taking rest, right? So we were running all
Yeah,
their
yeah,
operations here. And
yeah.
I was part of Wipro for a very long time, and we had ODCs for almost most of the companies, right? So oil and natural gas, banking, utilities, and all these things. So ODC model gave them a flexibility, saying that their data does not leave the data centers. That's the first point. The second point is they had dedicated lines for them to be secure. Their spaces were secure in an SEZ, or there were floors dedicated for those people, and the securities and other pointers were part of how the office used to work in a similar manner, right? So that's what I feel or understand what you're talking about. GCCs, am I right in saying that, Pragdish?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right, sir. So there is also one more model which was previously existing within the service-based company, just
Hmm.
because the service-based companies were initially being an outsourcing-based companies delivering services to the global organization. They also brought in new businesses which previously was fit into a model of OTC. So for
Hmm.
each customer environment, they would have different OTC. They call it as on offshore delivery center.
Yeah.
And just to ensure there are um, uh, data privacy requirements and then the access requirement, they actually created a module within the existing infrastructure, a separate space within their offices, and then they called it as ODC just to ensure the confidential information is kept within that ODC. And
Mm.
then there were several restrictions from a security viewpoint, that they every ODC centers had its own
There
iCard.
were audits
Phones are
done
not
for,
allowed.
yeah, yeah. There were audits done for the standards that they were maintaining in terms of, right. You're right. I think I was part of one or the two pointers where we did an audit as well. So that's a great insight there. Now coming to some of the problems when we go into GCC, what could be the common pitfalls do organizations fall into when scaling cybersecurity programs, especially into GCC environments?
Yes. So this is a very, very interesting question, because everyone wants scale now. So
Yeah.
just because of the advent of AI, everyone want to scale rapidly, exponentially, into each business. So that's the trend which is going on. And
Mm.
then big multinational organizations are trying to do so much of M&A, mergers and acquisitions. So they want to buy their competitor, or maybe a company which is upcoming in their space, or maybe the recent example of Google buying Wiz, uh, the major cloud security um, provider in the market. So it was a $32 billion deal. So everyone want to scale, and then they want to acquire new companies. So um, with that speed of scaling, the security becomes paramount important in terms of scale. Um, so to quote, maybe to give you an example, um compliance. Let's take compliance as an example. Um, so when it comes to compliance, the general mentality is like check in the box. So we did this compliance, ISO 27K, done, check in the box. PCI DSS, done, check in the box. So that is how we generally look at compliance. So it is something which we do, is kind of a baseline that we see. But at the same time, if we are, is the organization really seeing the security aspect that the compliance is trying to bring in? So I'm not saying that all the organizations are like that, but most of the organizations who are doing compliance initially, I'm not saying now, but in the initial days, it was seen as an requirement to satisfy the regulators or the compliance requirements. But
Yeah.
now it is making a major shift. So compliance, at a strategy level, at CISO level, so they have understood that compliance should be baked into their strategy. So they are designing cybersecurity strategy with keeping compliance as the baseline ingredient for their strategy to build on top of it. So now compliance is designed. So people call it a secure by design in technical terms. But when they design strategy at CISO level, they are also using the similar approach. When they are building strategy, they are taking compliance as the foundational element. Then comes uh, the scale. So whenever an CEO or any leader wants to expand on scale, they see which uh, geography they want to expand the business into. Probably a US based organization might acquire a company which is operating out of Europe. So
Mm.
in Europe region, GDPR applies, but if we see in US, there is no GDPR regulation, because the compliance and the regulatory are sector based. So to just quote GDPR versus HIPAA, so HIPAA applies to only
Healthcare.
healthcare, but it doesn't apply to any other sector. Let's say HIPAA doesn't apply to BFSI segment. So that is where, so it totally depends on where the company is trying to scale, and then what is the compliance requirement. And to be honest, it is, cybersecurity still has its niche, just because of the complexities involved in the nitty-gritty details of it. uh, and cybersecurity gets its enough attention only when the breach happens or something bad happens, and then it gets its own limelight, and then it is always an engine that operates kind of a business enabler from the background. So that is how I see that there are certain pitfalls like compliance, which companies still get into. But when the CISOs and the CROs, the chief risk officers, design the risk tolerance levels and everything, they are trying to be adaptive. The risk narrative is moving towards adaptive risk management, and then trying to prioritize business risk rather than the technical risk. So that is how I view from a security.
I think valid points. I'll try to put it in a different way. I think that's what
Yes,
I
please.
think. So compliance was a check mark. You rightly said that. Now compliance is a necessity. It's not that you can live without compliance. Now every company's cybersecurity posture is very important. Now because everybody is on a cloud. 90% of the people have their online transaction OLTP operations, whichever is happening, is on the digital space. They don't have any servers that are there sitting in the office premises and stuff like that. That's a different discussion which we can take, because it's a URL
Yeah,
that is connecting to a physical server. We talk more about cloud, but we have to understand that cloud, there is nothing called as a cloud. We are connecting to an URL. That's the important point that we should understand. Compliance is based on the regulations and the policies that you want to look at for your business to strive. So if I have to look at the GDPR, where data is very important, it should not go beyond region. European part comes in. When it comes to US side, CCPA takes up, right? And then when you come to India, now we are talking about DPDP Act. So where data, you cannot have any data. The rules have come up. Jan, we had some other update coming on DPDP, where data should not be taken into a stage, because what used to happen, and this has been faced by everybody who has taken a loan for a from a bank, right? Whether it's a housing loan or a personal loan, the amount of documentation that's are collected is humongous here in India, at least. So every copy that is not right, the photo is not right, the number is not coming in, you can take 100 copies, but if you sign those copies still there, they can be used to do anything that you can think about. So I leave that to the people to think. That's where the DPDP Act is coming up. Every country wants to safeguard their people's data, which is more of a digital asset now. uh, Even coming to personal assets, you and me are not spared. Without a mobile and OTP, we cannot live today. That's the stage we are getting into, right? So everything is digital, everything has to be protected. PII information is there. So there are a lot of things that are coming up in the GCC world which we have to look at. And the future is, again, it is a GCC model. You cannot have one country sleeping in their time, the other country may use their services, and that's a round clock, and you need people to run GCCs across the world, right? So businesses have scaled up to multiple regions, multiple continents. So GCC model is one model which will take up everything. Now coming to that pointer, how does cyber security intersect with most important point, mental health, burnout, and human errors
sorry,
today?
sorry, your voice was
You're
breaking
able
a
to
bit.
hear me now, or is it clear?
Yeah, yeah, a little,
Yeah.
yeah, a little
So
better.
how does cybersecurity intersect with mental health, burnout, and human error today? That's the point I wanted to understand.
Okay. So, this is a very interesting question that most of the cybersecurity professionals who is at the operations level would have observed this phenomenon. So, to start with stress, so most of the cybersecurity professionals actually are on the front line of defense. So they are firefighting with the threats day in and day out. And if we put the lens of GCC into this, most of the GCC is operating out of India, that too specifically in cybersecurity, that too specifically in SOC, operates 24 cross 7.
Yeah.
So stress is something which is given in this model, and then there are burnout which are happening with select individuals who might have entered into the cybersecurity arena very recently, or maybe into the system for a prolonged period of time. It happens for different reasons. So one is the pressure to constantly keep learning, because cybersecurity is a very dynamic field. Then we get constant pressure to learn new tech, new knowledge, new threats, new threat intel. The list goes on and on. So that is one thing which is creating a stress for every cybersecurity individual. Then comes burnout, just because of people operating out of 24 cross 7, unable to manage their health, and then unable to keep up with uh, the well-being, gets into some kind of a burnout. But I think organizations around the globe, and specifically companies operating out of India, are coming up with um, kind of an, I would say, policies, human centric policies, which is to give proper breaks. So most of the companies now give around 20 days of leave per year as an privileged leave, and then on top of it sick leaves, and then the casual leave. So there are several human centric approaches, human well-being initiatives that are brought in by the companies. Still there is a good amount of stress and the burnout which happens, and then it happens at three different levels. One is the emotional level, and then the physical burnout that the cybersecurity folks happens, because at times when we have to respond to any incidents, there is there is no time bound. So incident happens overnight, and then we are called up, and then we have to support the incident. So it so it is something that we have to manage, and then organizations are coming up with the policies to cope up with those stress and burnout. But it is something that is there, that we have to agree. But maybe as an action point, or maybe a request to the leaders in the GCCs. So I have seen most of the GCCs operating out of India. That too, we have almost like 35 percentage of GCCs within Bangalore. So maybe a request that the reward policies, the market benchmarks of the GCCs needs a relook, because people are burning the night oil. So is the reward satisfying enough? Yes, we have come a long way, but I think that the amount of effort that everyone is putting in the cybersecurity industry as a whole, when we compare to the reward ratio, it seems it needs it there is a room for improvement. So that is something which I
I think
think that all GCC leaders has to
I
explore.
think your point on see rewards and recognitions and other stuff are more to look at keeping people intact in the organization. But when it comes to burnout, the burnout is most of the time not getting the right answers. That's where the burnout happens, or the right support that is needed when they are in crisis. That's what my understanding is. And the burnout is another problem, because when somebody does a mistake, uh, is his voice heard? How is the leader treating when there is a mistake, right? So that's a point that I've seen in my career, saying that if you hold back the people's errors, and you see how it can be minimized or eliminated, because it can be driven through an SOP, right? So is the SOP missing some of the pointers which the engineers are looking at a GCC model, right? Now GCC model, it's a set proven processes, and processes are to be followed in a workflow manner, right? So you get a ticket, you raise a ticket, you take a backup, or you do a preventive maintenance, you do a patch management, you do a monitoring services, a logging services, and stuff like that, right? So it is more to look at burnout. What I think is, it's the process and procedures that have to be relooked out. And if there is enough strength that we can look at for the services that we are providing, I think that should not be a problem. The biggest vulnerability in cyber is people are under pressure always. That's the only thing that happens in a very different style there. Now how should leaders look at embedding a culture because cybersecurity should be a culture. It's not related to IT only, right? So people always think cybersecurity is IT's work. It's not IT's work to be looking at. It is a organization's work completely. Now, how do leaders embed a cybersecurity culture across departments, not only IT? Is there something that we can share, Pragatish?
Huh. So previously, it's so true, sir. When when the GCCs were set up, so it was seen as an
Yeah,
IT entity. But when we want to talk about the culture, so culture starts with people. Uh, so we cannot do any cultural change without involving people. So people forms the core part of the organization. So if you want to change culture, it changes from the mindset and the tone from the top. All right. So as cybersecurity leaders, so what is the tone that is being set at the top plays a major role. And then when we want to set a culture within the organization, so it has several dimensions to it. So one is security awareness. So if we talk about, so cybersecurity is always seen as a blocker in the previous era, but now most of the organizations has understood that cybersecurity is not a blocker, that is going to save uh, the downtime. So it has become an enabler. So how are we communicating this message to the business entities across the organization? So what is the communication method? What is the frequency at which we run security awareness program? So that sets the tone to the organization. And then how senior management takes security seriously, and then how leaders enable uh, the business entities and the users to report any cyber incident to the necessary forum, or maybe to the necessary incident responders or the security team when a breach happens, or when an incident happens, or when a phishing thing happens. And right now in the recent days, uh, even the phishing simulation plays a major role. But also when it comes to education, previously it was done through boring trainings, videos and everything. But now it has transitioned, most of the organization have transitioned to interactive learning. And then organizations are promoting cyber heroes, whoever is reporting any form of incident, any form of phishing incident. So whom human still plays a uh, weakest link in the whole cybersecurity chain. So with that perspective, so the cultural aspect is being looked at from multiple dimensions from the industry standpoint. So this is bit of a high level take from my side of how the modern organizations are seeing cybersecurity. And then they are trying to uh, bring in new aspects like uh, uh, DevSecOps, or maybe from the development pipeline, or designing security from the product ideation perspective. And there are many recent roles which got created for product security, OT security. So organizations are trying to bring in security from the very initial point of ideation product and then go to market. So that is how I see how the culture is being created in most of the
your
organizations that I
yeah,
know.
your point is
Sorry.
seems very very valid in terms of how cybersecurity is getting shaped over in cultural. Not only becoming today, what is happening is the fines are becoming hefty, right? And if the organizations are not keeping up their cyber security posture, there is a challenge that they will face, right? That's another point that we have now. I was talking to some of the CISOs, and we were given that the normal training part is gone, right? And that training part is not to look at one routine session is gone. Now it is more about how you tell a story, right? And how do you tell a story which is more of seeing how the user gets more interactive, right? What you said is interactive sessions, right? That's it. And I
Yeah,
was talking to one
exactly.
of the CSA founders, and what she was telling was that most of the cybersecurity trainings have come become a gamifying solutions nowadays. Yeah,
Gamified.
so if the
Correct.
training has to be, they are giving them a option to play a game and clear that kind of a training. That's where I think awareness is coming up now. Looking at cultural cross, those days are gone again, where cyber security was a checklist. It cannot be ticked and we cannot. Cyber security with cloud AI tools coming in, you will find lot of things that I think are going to be done on a daily basis, where cybersecurity was to be looked at only an audit section when the audit used to happen. So that days are gone is what I would take from what you have been talking so far, Pragdish. Now coming to what we want to understand is how the insights at the management level come in. What should the CEOs ask their CISOs in today's cybersecurity climate? But normally,
Sorry, sir, your voice
oh,
was breaking.
sorry,
Sorry to interrupt.
you are
Your
able to hear
voice.
me now better?
Yeah, yeah,
I,
much better.
I don't know. I am just having the mic in front of me, but
Yeah,
yeah,
just the mic.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I
just
think
not.
what I am trying to understand is what should the CEOs ask their CSOs, right, in today's cybersecurity climate? Because it's normally what is not asked, right? And what are the right questions that they should be asking the CISOs?
So that's bit of a controversial and sensitive question to answer. I will try my level best. Uh, so I have not been in the board, kind of a board as such, but I have closely worked with most of the CISO organization, even in my past roles, and then the current role which I am playing. So I have been part of strategic stakeholder. Conversations, and then the work that most of the GCC or the cybersecurity leaders deliver is to the CISO organization, the parent organization or the organization which we are part of. Um, I think the CEOs of today uh, have understood the imperative of cybersecurity, and then the conversations are now becoming very transparent between the CISOs and the CEOs. So that is one thing which I am seeing as a change, past experience. And then just because the
Mm.
conversations are becoming transparent, um the CISOs, the CEOs are trying to understand how the CISOs are enabling the strategic objectives of the business. So that is one. And then how the CISOs are minimizing the business risk. So that is two. Um, and then the point three is how can the CISOs enable for business growth. So these are all the three things which most of the CISOs and CEOs understand then and then discuss. But there is something which CEOs might not ask us: what is beyond all the discussions that we have. So there is something which is beyond, above and beyond everything that
No,
is
no,
happening
my
of the
pointer
BA.
was to look at, see, what is happening is now with the threats coming up, right? The way things are changing in the landscape of cybersecurity, what we see is often we have been surprised with some of the questions that we missed to ask while
Correct,
implementation,
correct.
right? So that's the pointer that I wanted to understand from a CISO and the
Sure.
CEO's conversation. So start with this question: how do I look? So I again I'll
Got it,
refer to
got it.
one pointer where uh, in one of the CSA chapter discussions that we were having, uh, one of the CEO asked the CISO saying that are we secure? That's a
that's
I
that's a
cannot say
cliche.
yes, I cannot say no, right? So if I say no, I'm in trouble. I'm saying yes, and there's something happens, then there is a problem. So what is the answer? I think was told was something like, uh, to the known things we are secure, to the unknown we are not, right?
Absolutely, sir. I got the
Absolutely.
point. Yeah,
So I think that was one pointer that made me think, when we look at. how are we secure now? Going to our geopolitical cases as well, we were secure till what happened. Now we are thinking of securing it much more. Now we are trying to see where else we can get into the intelligence being much more stronger for us. What we missed, what were the questions that were supposed to be asked while we build up a strategy? That's the point that I wanted to understand,
Sure,
Pragatish.
sure, sure.
Okay.
Maybe I can
Now,
double click on that point
yeah.
a bit, how that conversations are happening.
Mhm.
So there is always this tough questions which is being asked by all of the CEOs to the CISOs or uh, uh, any senior leadership asking to CISOs. So that is the main or maybe the core question that CISOs are being asked. One thing which CISOs always try to understand is the security posture, uh, and then whenever a threat happens. So just taking a point from what you have mentioned in that anecdote of CEO asking a question, "Are we secure?"
Yeah.
So the another question which often get asked from a CEO to a CISO is, uh, okay, we have managed this incident. We had certain response actions, but are we secure? Are we secure for the next incident? Will the next incident won't happen for our company? So the answer is no. But uh, every company. To give you a bit of a stat, so the dwell time of any attacker is averaging, according to the latest threat report, it is 10 days. So probably the attacker would be in the system, the APT group would be into the system of an organization. We never know. But the CISOs are playing a crucial role that they are trying to bring in the defenses to give an answer that they are taking appropriate countermeasures, bringing in the control, and then equipping the whole organization to battle against the threat. So yes, the breaches could happen. The breakout time is averaging out to 48 hours. But how can we put the countermeasures? How can we isolate the system, or how can we respond faster? Is the answer that most of the CISOs are trying to give to the CEOs. So, so it is kind of a battlefield, and then how fast can we respond to the incident if at all if it happens? So that's how the conversations are ongoing from my
I
understanding.
think what you said is very clear. You're able to hear me, right, Pragdish?
Yeah, yeah, yes.
What I see is I'm going back to days where I was a CISO, I was a CIO there, and where we used to talk is that what is the time that we may need to recover if there is an incident. I'm going into the olden style of looking at RTO, RPO pieces, where what would be our recovery time objective, what would be our RPO, right? Point objective, where can we recover? RPO,
Yes.
recovery point
Yeah,
objective
RP.
is RTO, RPOs were very crucial. And today in the cyberspace, that's what we are trying to look at in a different form. If there is an attack happening, what is the time that we need to be in a position to isolate that system, find out what is the time that we will take to fix that. And those terms are coming back in a different level in the cyber security arena, is what I understand from what you're trying to say, right? So now, with this, how does this GCC model future proof businesses in AI led cloud first environments? Because now everything is cloud, right?
Absolutely, sir. So this is a very interesting question that if we are not speaking about AI, and then if we are running a podcast which says future of global cyber security, then it is not something that everyone is going to like. So without AI, this is my own way of looking into it. So I have created kind of an acronym which resonates in my mind often. So AI is the new air that we breathe. So what I really mean by that is agentic and autonomous, and then it is going with the inference because Google is coming up with so many ironwood kind of TPUs. So we moved away from GPUs to TPUs. So inference
Mm.
is coming a big trend, and then the reasoning. So most of the chatbots or the AI models has come with thinking capability and reasoning capability. So AI is the new air that we are breathing, and then most of the organizations have joined the bandwagon of AI. So that is one thing, and then most of the BFSI companies, I could see a comment from Anil that cloud security is focused for
Yeah.
BFSI as well. So
I'm bringing
cloud,
that here.
most of the yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Sir, not only BFSI, so if we think about any sector in cybersecurity space, most of the workloads has been moved from on-prem to cloud. So now even the banking sectors are running workloads and their application, everything from cloud. So cloud security plays a major role. And then with the combination of AI and the cloud security, the equation is becoming much more complex. Into the whole GCC story. Um, and then when we talk about the GCC and how it can support this cloud first, AI first, and then cloud security based organizational requirement, I could see from this perspective. So maybe I will pick up on AI first, and then probably I will delve deep into the cloud security bit. So AI has two dimensions. So AI to enable security, and then security for AI. So these are two different dimensions that we have to look at it. And most of the multinational organizations have already enabled and then implemented AI in some shape and form. So either it could be a co-pilot in our browsers, or in the development centers that they have implemented ChatGPT and the co-pilot to write code, or they have implemented chatbots and the agents in for customer experience. So AI is not something that we see futuristic, so it is already implemented. So now the question is, how do we secure AI? So that is one bit to it. So now comes the GCC, how GCC enables this AI security. So just because most of the organization running its hardcore R&D centers from India, and then the development centers from India, so it becomes much more important for global organizations to think, because this policy implementation, everything has to be near to the implementation. So what I really mean by is, so a security team sitting near to an development center. So a Java developer or some developer writing a code. So cyber security team within GCC sits near to the development team. So that is where this DevSecOps kind of an format plays a major role. That is getting implemented within the GCC. So that is bit of an AI, how we can secure AI implementations within organization. So then comes, how do we secure AI, LLM? So that's altogether a different topic which has different dimension. Maybe just conscious of time, maybe I will get into cloud security a bit for a moment. So cloud security plays a major role for all the segments, and then maybe I will not get into the tools of it, but from a GCC standpoint, most of the cloud security uh, risk assessments, and then integration of cloud security, and then the DevOps engineers are also part of Indian GCC, and we play a major role in terms of contributing to the wider strategies and objectives of global organizations. So GCC plays a major role in both cloud security and AI security.
No, I'll add to what you're saying, my pointers in my understanding. So, to the audience and to people who are listening to this cyber security side, uh, we are talking the same thing for ages, actually, to speak. We spoke about network security at some time, then we renamed it as information security, then we named them as intrusion protection, into threat detection and stuff like that, IDP. Then we said that was cloud security. Now we are calling it cyber security. So we're talking the same thing in different terminologies, but how do we look at handling them? The architecture has changed, the way that it is being handled is changed. We had one devices which was there in one data center. Now I can integrate any device across the globe to have one infrastructure, right? So it is not necessary that you should have a hardware right in the data center. You can take it from one region to another region, divert your traffic to a different um, region itself, and have the kind of security that that region requires. So you can be very specific in building security and compliances when you are dealing with European regions. And it is very easy to build something in the cloud infrastructure where you wanted to cater only for US regions. And now, in specific, as what Pragdish was saying, when we were talking about medical side, HIPAA plays a major important pointer there. Now coming into other sectors, you have other laws that are there. uh, there are various laws for various pieces. The predominant things are GDPR, CCPA, HIPAA compliance. That is what we speak most of the time. Now DPDP is going to become the next big wave. Now we'll see how India is going to take stride on our data protection and see how that is getting implemented. In the interest of time, I'll take one two questions and I will talk about what as CSA that we are doing in the next 5-10 minutes, because we have about 9 minutes. So, uh, w-
Sir.
what GCC model future proofs businesses? That's what we discussed about. What advice for the first time board member to review a cyber security program can be given, or what is your advice there?
So maybe I will try to see it from a business lens. So maybe I will put a couple of questions that new senior leadership or any art change or board member comes into the organization and sees the security program for the very first time. So probably they could ask, what is the top three business risk that you see for the organization, and what is how is your cybersecurity program trying to mitigate that risk to an acceptable level. So that is something that a new board member can see from a new security program. And then what is the impact if something goes wrong? Let's say an incident response. How are we prepared to tackle the new risk that that is posed to the organization? So these are the three main things that any new senior leadership would ask to any CISO for that matter, just to understand what is the risk that we are having, and then how are we protecting the brand reputation, and what is the financial loss and impact that we are going to have if, let's say, if security has to go for a toss. So that is how I view from a uh, senior leadership.
I think that's apt saying that, because we'll have to look at how we look this piece from a board level perspective, right? So how the board looks at cybersecurity and what is that it's the outcome that the board is looking while implementing a AI based security tool or a new tool that is going to protect the assets, the digital assets. How is the infrastructure getting protected and stuff like that? Those are the common things. I think we should look at how the first playbook can be brought up, is what I think. From a standpoint of first member, what is the playbook that we have, what is that we are missing in that playbook, can we do a review? That's what I think the first pointer, first member coming into board can look at, my view. And coming to the last question, but before the last question, I just wanted to tell, now we at cyber security alliance Bangalore chapter have a good amount of CIOs and CISOs and experts that are there, part of the community. You can look at the session. I am bringing up some of the scrolls that we are there. We are bringing up a summit coming up in September, which is going to be the link that I've put here, where you can look at and register yourself. I can paste that link after the session. Then now you want to keep yourself updated to what CSA is doing as a community to Bangalore chapter, from CSA, and from what Bangalore chapter is doing. You can get into a WhatsApp group that you can register yourself and get to understand the CIOs and CISOs talking about. Now, what is Power of Knowing forum doing here when CSA is doing the event? So I do podcasts. I am part of CSA, and I also be part of the works that CSA Bangalore is doing. And what we have been doing is we had a seminar in December where we started looking at why don't we do podcasts specific to cybersecurity in this platform, and that's where this whole collaboration what we are talking about came up, where we collaborated. Cloud Security Alliance Bangalore chapter and Power of Knowing forum collaborated to bring up security, cybersecurity programs, cybersecurity leaders, and talk about what programs that CSA Bangalore has been doing. We run CISSP programs. We run modules on a week. We have monthly meetups that are happening in the sessions. Those are the pointers that CSA Bangalore is doing, right? So you can go to our website, Bangalore chapter, CSA Bangalore chapter, and have a look at what we have been doing. This is the website, csabangalorechapter.com, and you can have the details. And coming to the last point that I have with you, Pragdesh, keeping the time in mind, how can developing economies adopt a GCC model without massive investments? Because GCC investment is having people, infrastructure, and everything ready for operations to go live from day one, right? So it is not that we can scale up over a period. So you'll have to bring up that kind of an, what could be some pointers that you can share to the audience to keep that on, and then I'll summarize on what we discussed so far, Pragdish.
Okay, sure. So I think India is the best example for all the developing economies. So even we are still in the developing economy, but from a GCC standpoint, we have matured from a GCC model standpoint, from the shared service center to the innovation hub. So probably for the developing economies, I think like they can start small, and then they can do bit of a customization according to their needs of the security business. So I could see a trend of nearshore coming up in most of the developing economies. So certain big organizations seeing, because of regulatory reasons, they are setting up nearshore operations. So the nearshore operations could be one part of the developing economy getting an opportunity to set up GCC. So start small and then implement bit of a customization, and then cater to the requirements of the company at scale that they can provide quality. So that is the 3 pointers that I could relate to when it comes to developing economy GCC.
I think what you are saying makes very important understanding that when we are talking about GCCs, you need to look at the market size that you want to cater to start with a small thing, and as things go, you will have to enhance it and make it to the next. So I with this I would like to summarize what we spoke about. We spoke about the future of global security, foundation and trends that we spoke about, where we spoke about how GCC models can help illuminate those pointers. Then we spoke about some of the pointers evolving CEOs can ask CISOs, are we in the right path? Are we looking at where we stand? Are we secure and safe? To a stage where we know, at least now unknown is still there as a part of every business that we run. Unknowns are there, and once they are known, we try to fix them. That's where we look at. Then we spoke about how GCC model is becoming a global benchmark, and what is that we are seeing at that point. Then we took some of the pain points and the human centric challenges that we see as part of GCC, and some pitfalls in scaling cybersecurity programs into the GCC environments is what we spoke about. Then some pointers where we spoke about GCC is a 24/7 operations, right? So how do we look at burnout? How do you look at health issues? How can we look at human error because of burnout? So those pointers were discussed, and we looked at how things can look. Now the important point that we discussed is about how a culture of cybersecurity across departments, making it seamless, not only saying it is an IT's job. That's what was a very important point that we took about. And then we spoke about how strategies can look at what can be the current situation where we see how business can have AI led future proof cybersecurity, and also looked at CISOs make a climate, but it should CEOs are in a position to make the CISOs work very efficiently with some of the pointers that they can give as a support. Then some advice is taken for the first time board member reviewing a cybersecurity program. Some pointers that we discussed, and we started with one pointer how we can look at global impact when we have small data centers, and how do we start looking at GCC model for without having a massive investment is what that's what we've been discussed overall to the discussion today. Pragdish, thank you for being here, Pragdish. And with this, what I would like to tell to the audience is that today we have streamed this podcast live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Hope you found this pointer valuable, and thank you for joining us. Our next podcast is tomorrow, that is on 248 podcast, which is going to be skillfulness, how to build realistic and increase harmony and relationship and for the growth. That's the podcast that we are talking about at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow IST. Any further pointers that you want to add before we go out, Pragdish?
No, sir. Thanks a lot for the opportunity, and thanks to Satya ma'am, Pooja, and then Seema for this opportunity. And it was nice speaking with you.
Thank you, thank you. We With this we would like to conclude the session, and thank you for joining us. Good day.
Thanks, sir.